It might have been this is the uncle that is putting food on the table that has, violated the child. So then the family will be quiet about that because this is a breadwinner. So it further then disadvantages the girls. That's why in most cases, you will find that a learner will only report dynamics they come in because this is a child and has been violated by an adult. So there's a lot. Families, they hide these things. Shame, embarrassment is what really makes them not to come up. There is our systems and our institutions don't have enough support systems for learners to feel that they are empowered, that they will be protected.
But to families like that who don't come forward and report these matters, what's the one advice you'd give them, just to make sure that we save these young ones that are going through this sorts of abuse?
Do have the Children's Act 38 of 2017, yeah? And section 110 there, it lists everybody that has the right to report. So I think our families, our children, they need to understand that. So within my portfolio, I have social workers, I have psychologists, I have therapists. So, and in each district, we have these professionals. So it's where then we train teachers and we create awarenesses of the act. Also, we do parenting with assurance, which also covers on what Archbishop has said.
Let me jump straight to you. Usually we come across situations where the school environment makes it hard for children, due to issues of bullying, maybe harassment and vandalism. Can you tell us a bit more on what parents and teachers need to know about children's rights when it comes to education?
Thank you very much again. I think from what my colleagues have just highlighted, it's important for me, before coming to your answer, just to highlight to you that as a commission, as a Chapter 9 institution, we've got a constitution that governs us as a country. And in governing us, you look at the founding provisions of the constitution. That's highlight the key things in terms of section 1A. That says to us human dignity. And from human dignity, saying we achieve equality and advancement of freedoms and human rights. So meaning that what we are trying to say, we as a human rights, we are saying it is important to ensure that each and every one has to have an environment where he can be able to reach or realize his potential. And in doing so, it's important as well to say we can only achieve that if we can take into cognizance the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Like Goran just highlighted too, like I was saying earlier, in terms of the section that they are using, and the Children's Act that is there to guide them. It's important that we protect children as much as we can, so that we'll be able to achieve their, like I'm saying, their maximum potential in moving forward.
Look, let me jump to the young one, Refilwe. Let me jump to you. As an RCL member, right? Has other leaders, confided in you regarding any sort of abuse, they enjoy at home or even at school? And if so, how do you, go about, handling their situation?
Well, thank you for the space, for allowing me to talk. There have been a few cases, like a few students coming to me talking about how they have been emotionally abused, mentally abused. Because as today's generation doesn't understand that abuse comes in all sorts of ways. So it's hard for them to actually see it and realize that it's abuse until they are told that it's abuse. And what I've realized from our generation is that we struggle with a lot. We struggle mentally, we struggle physically, we struggle with a lot of things which we don't know how to talk about. So when those things happen, we don't know who to turn to, we don't know who to talk to, you see. So when a certain peer or like a learner seems appealing to you to talk to, it becomes easier. So some come to me and they talk about the things that happen at home. They talk about the things that they struggle with physically and emotionally and mentally, and how they cannot talk about it. So when that happens, as a student, I don't have much power to change that situation, but I try to be there. I try to be present emotionally. I try to be present for them to talk to me and try to listen because I understand, because I am young, because I understand the situation that they're in. So in that way, and it's not only abuse physically and emotionally, but also spiritually. People don't understand that spirituality has a huge impact in abuse in general. Because of your certain spirituality, people think that you should act the way they want you to act. But because you have your own spirit, you have your own beliefs, you have your own understanding of your own spirit, you cannot act that way. But until we talk more about spirituality abuse, until we talk more about emotional abuse, students won't know about it. So it's hard for try to make them understand that if you have a relationship with God, things will come out of it. If you have your own beliefs, things will come out of it. You don't have to act a certain way because a person told you to act that way. So because I don't have much power, I just try to be there. I just try to show up. You know, I just try to listen, and I don't come off as judging because I understand that it hurts when a person judges you because you opened up to them.
But do you ever get, you know, other kids coming to you and telling you of a form of abuse that they're going through, and yet they don't want it to be reported?
Yes.
Let's say a case of physical abuse maybe, and they don't want it to be reported.
Yes, and when that happens, I try to encourage them to talk up. Because if you don't talk up now, that means that your sibling is going to get the same abuse. If you don't talk up now, that means your friend is going to experience the same thing, but they're going to be afraid to speak up because they don't know how to engage and they don't know how to open up in that. So when you encourage them to speak up, because it helps other people also, that helps them to open up a bit. Like talking to a teacher, talking to someone you trust, that helps kids open up more. Because today's society has taught us to stay strong, don't speak up because no one is going to listen. But that is the wrong message to send to kids. Because kids need to know that there's a safe space. You can open up, you can speak up. Because there's always that one person that's going to want to make a change in your life.
Listen, since you've spoken about the safe space, I want to jump to Medgwelane. What needs to happen, and maybe as a form of an advice to her as well, and to other RCL members who are watching at home or will get a glimpse later when they go on their social media to watch this conversation. What needs to happen in a situation where there is an abuse and they talk to them, but they don't want that incident to be reported like we asked earlier on?
Okay. Before I answer that question, I just want to say, to just give the magnitude of what we're dealing with when it comes to learners. Because from my office is where we're gathering all the data so that we understand what is happening. I'll just take Harib for an example. Between 14 to 19-year-olds, for just from beginning of the year up until now, 147 learners have given birth. That is ages 14 to 19, they've given birth.
147.
Yes, and in the Free State, ages 10 to 19-year-olds, there were unwanted pregnancies, which is 13% of the population of our 10 to 19, unwanted pregnancies. So the minute you talk to unwanted pregnancies, you talk about statutory rape that was never reported. Possible statutory rape in this case, that was never reported. So that is the magnitude of the violation of our children. And remember, this stats is taken from Department of Health. So in answering our young lady here today, you know, the Children's Act places an obligation to each and every person that becomes aware of a violation, of a social violation. Team coordinators, which are teachers that have trained on psychosocial support, that are trained on referral. Because we don't have social workers that are school-based. Our social workers are district-based. And learners, they come through referral. So a teacher first a learner will have then to just trust one teacher. And I believe that in our schools, there had to be one teacher that a learner can trust. Or SGB members. Because like Ms. Kabat has said, we want an environment where learners feel safe and free, and that their information will be held with all the confidentiality it requires. So then we have school-based support team coordinators that they need to report to. The RCLs they can also then, on behalf of that learner, remember now they are then reporting to somebody who will take the matter up. So then they report what teachers in the name of the child there is abuse taking place. That's on that suspicion. Then the teacher can complete that form, send it to Department of Social Development or to the police, and then we take it up. So they are really, when it comes to law, but the implementation is a challenge. And learners trusting, you know, the teachers. That is where the problem is.
Can I ask a question on that? Sorry.
Okay, you're going to ask that question, just hold it. I want to jump, that Evani has been raising his hand for quite some time now. Very briefly, that Evani.
There are two things. We have some identified schools in the Free State where we have what we call a learner support agency. Learner support agency, they are working as social workers in the school. They are working with the SBST, like Mekolan have just mentioned. I think we can utilize those officials that are present in the school. But the second one, we need to have what we call a present parent. You know, a present parent is the parents that the learners can trust. Look, if I'm the chairperson at the school, Ria Rabetu Secondary School, when I step in that vicinity, the children can openly come to me and talk to me. So we need such parents, present parents, where the children can say, this one I can trust, and I can be open and talk about everything. I think if you can do that, I think your fear, my daughter, that you don't have powers. We are there to provide that guidance. We are there to close that gap where you say you don't have power. You have power. Look, Section 8, when we deal with the code of conduct, we don't just deal with the conduct of the children. There are rights of the children and the responsibilities. That is where we get in to make sure that those responsibilities are met, because we don't want to violate the right of education of the children just because they are afraid to talk. We need to be with the present parents to make sure that we assist them. Thank you very much.
Rafila, you were jumping in there,
Yes,
asking a question.
On behalf of the learners and my peers in general, I just want to ask, how is it ensured that the Children's Act can actually protect the youth and the children and the learners? That's what I want to ask, because a lot of children don't understand the whole concept of the Children's Acts, you know, legally things. That's what I want to ask. Like, how is it ensured?
If you allow me just to chip in, it's a good question, but I'm not going to answer. Maybe I'll not try to be diplomatical in answering the question. But to what Metwalan highlighted earlier, most of the children, even though they've experienced any form of maybe violation, they don't report, or they are scared to report. And by so doing, you find that sometimes you are the person, maybe take for instance, you are a victim, you want to go and report, then maybe some of your colleagues or your friends who have seen that act happening to you, they're not going to support you. Now the problem is going to be when you go to court or whatever, court doesn't just need a person, each other, in terms of saying, this is what has happened to us. Like, she has told us what she's been doing at her school. It is very important for that, so that we can be able to say to her, if you are that kind of person, a student or a learner, can come to you and be able to say to you, this is what has happened, or this is what has transpired. So would you please help me with 1, 2, 3? Like we just highlighted about, there must be a teacher that we can trust at school. We all know that there are those that we can trust. Go to that and see, and make sure that your case that you bring forward, the case it's solid, tight, you know, watertight, so to say. Because now, if you just have a solid say no, yes, say, it's a question, because when you get to court, they're gonna poke you into such an extent that you end up asking yourself that now the victim become again a secondary victim, a victimized. So it's one of those things. I understand what he's saying, but again, just in closing, I understand it's very important. I know we've got life orientation, but it's very important to keep on repeating these things time and time again. Why I'm saying this, and just not to get out of the script, but just to highlight how many of you have been to church and they're still going to church and they have been given simple message. as a person, you have to change your heart. But people, they don't change their heart. In terms of that, take care of the children. The Constitution is simply saying that in Section 28, subsection 2, in terms of the rights of the children are paramount. It's what they are saying. And that's what the Department of Education is doing to try to protect. But if me as a parent, I'm not taking my responsibilities or I'm not doing it, then there is no way that will be able to win the battle. And the children are always going to say, who am I going to trust? Because even now, my parents cannot be able to support me, or even my friends, or now I become the scum of each and every individual. So that's what the problem is. But like I'm saying, education or advocacy and groups like your faith-based civil society organization, they are there, and you should open it.
We're going to come back and continue with the conversation.
Lefapha la Thuto Free State le letsholong la ho etsa tlhokomediso ka taolo ya dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka dikolong ke boikarabelo ba matitjhere le batswadi ho thibela diketso tsa dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka dikolong. Diketso tsa dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka di baka hore motho a tswe kotsi kapa ho hlokahala, mahloko a kelello kapa ho itematsa le ho ipolaya le tshebediso empe ya dithethefatsi. Matitjhere a eletswa ho bua ka thibelo ya dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka le barutwana, ho kgothaletsa barutwana ho bua ka sitana le ho fana ka thuto ya ho tlisa tharollo le bokgoni ba taolo ya kgalefo. Molaetsa ona o tlisetswa ke Lefapha la Thuto Free State. Lefapha la Thuto Free State le letsholong la ho etsa tlhokomediso ka taolo ya dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka dikolong ke boikarabelo ba matitjhere le batswadi ho thibela diketso tsa dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka dikolong. Diketso tsa dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka di baka hore motho a tswe kotsi kapa ho hlokahala, mahloko a kelello kapa ho itematsa le ho ipolaya le tshebediso empe ya dithethefatsi. Matitjhere a eletswa ho bua ka thibelo ya dintwa tse tletseng dikgoka le barutwana, ho kgothaletsa barutwana ho bua ka sitana le ho fana ka thuto ya ho tlisa tharollo le bokgoni ba taolo.
Welcome back. Let's carry on with the conversation. I hope you also drank some water there at home, because this is getting heated. I love this. I love it, particularly when the young one is asking those relevant questions on behalf of other young people. While we were in our break, Mema Skabati wanted to chip in there on the question that she asked, particularly on that power issue that she kept on emphasizing on. The floor is all yours.
No, I wanted to say to refill, she must not underestimate the position that she has. There's power there, and it's not like the department has elected RCLs for us as a token. She has power. Besides the power, she also has the responsibility to fight for the other learners. They have a power to request as the RCL that they must be trained on this legislation so that they can be able to cascade information. They are members of the SGB, and I'm sure when they're sitting in the SGB, those are the things that they should be able to raise there so that they do not become a token. Because the other thing is, I think as a country, we have this tendency of having things for the sake of compliance. An RCL member is not a compliance thing. It's a person who must be there so that they ensure that there's change on behalf of the learners. So, Fifi, you have power. Don't underestimate that. Use it.
Fifi, you have power. Don't underestimate. Let me move to Ntate Selvi, because he's been the one very quiet in this whole conversation. I see he doesn't even want to chip in there anywhere where he can. But Ntate Selvi, for me to attending schools are the ones initiating it.
I would say there are several reasons, but let me start with the one of a lack of patriotism and neighborliness. If children don't know the importance of protecting the infrastructure in their schools, of loving their environment, and even the neighbor, those that are staying around the school, the community around the school, if they don't, if they are not jealous about the school, then that's where we'll find a lot of vandalism. And the other factor is that one of poverty and unemployment, especially to those schools that are built around areas like informal settlements. Because of poverty around those areas, then we have a case like at Bethlehem Comprehensive, which is around Slahleo, which is one of the informal settlement. They normally do a lot of vandalism around that school. But when you look at other schools that are not around the informal settlement, there's almost no vandalism causing harm to those schools that are built around those areas. And the other thing I think is also ill discipline and disrespect and rebellious learners, which calls for the families. That if the family is not inculcating love, is not inculcating values to the children, the morals, then you see it at school, because normally those kind of children are the ones that are giving us problems in our schools, and they vandalize. Sometimes if they experience fighting at home, then they sing with another learner, they take anything that is in front of them to hit another learner with it. So sometimes that's where we get our finisher vandalized, because now they use finisher to fight. The other thing is also the question of leadership. If you look where there's consistency in dealing with issues at the school, then you'll find that there's no harmony at school. They use the space to vandalize the schools. They use the space to become unruly. So I really feel that the leadership and management in our schools, working together of the principal, is also, when they are bored, they tend to be unruly. But if they are not frustrated, I don't think we'll have that vandalism in most of our schools.
And I also want you to chip in there, on this vandalism issue. Would you say, due to the fact that there is no longer corporate punishment, maybe in schools children now have lost some form of respect?
I wouldn't agree so much in terms of the corporal punishment. That's why I've highlighted according to Constitution. Maybe not to say it is not okay to be the person. We all know that. But somehow there's two difference in terms of punishing a person and disciplining an individual. So vandalism, again, like that Mufudi just highlighted, is when you look at, like I've highlighted, in terms of human dignity. When I was growing up, my father used to say to me, may his soul rest in peace, said to me, Molawo Otawa Shudu, charity begins at home. Now, that on its own, let me tell you something. I was a very naughty individual, make no mistake. I was naughty. But in terms of that, I always remember that I'm having a father and a mother who are strict. No matter, even though I can try to go out of the way, they're always going to discipline me. So meaning that it's all about the role that our parents are playing to avoid certain things. Because certain things we are doing because of a peer pressure. You cannot just go, if you love something like that, Selby just highlighted, you cannot love something and decided to go and ban a school. It doesn't make sense as an individual. It comes to you as an individual, ubuntu, ujama, your human dignity, because now, based on such things, you are saying you want to go, or you want your children, or you want whoever, neighbors, to go to a school where there are no windows, where you have vandalized, or we go for chemistry, we want to have scientists. But in that laboratory, we don't have apparatus to be able to do experiments. So it's a challenge whereby you cannot link all these things. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to agree so much, but it's all about saying, what are we doing, our role as parents and as families, in terms of approving the life of our children, so that they can be able to know what is right and what is wrong. And you cannot say that thing is going to be taught at school. We as the parent I get about that. Because I only beat my son once. Once, I think he was around 8. And he knows that I say, I don't fight people. We negotiate. We have to reason together. Understand? This is what we want. Now he understands that my father doesn't beat me, and he doesn't want me to be beaten, and that's it. So that on its own, even if he can get something wrong, maybe to go and do something, always think about me. Say, yo, Daddy, wabita, and Daddy can sit down with me and talk. So it's one of those things of saying, vandalism, it's all about, I think, I don't want to put this thing into the economical factors, the social problem that we are having. It's all about being a person, individual. You know what is right and what is wrong. And in each and every individual, there is right and what is wrong. You know that. So it's up to you how to decide and avoiding peer pressure. Because now we are moving to other things if we get to that. In terms, maybe you are doing that because your peers are bullying you to do that. But you, if you have a stable family, this is not easy to do that. Or you got support, like Ntate Murute just highlighted earlier. So it's one of those things that I can just highlight, giving to you.
Ntate Letsholo, o bona ha o bua ka botho le bomme le bontate ba makeisheneng mane ba rekisa metsi a ba bang ba tlwelo ya dikolong ba lo utswa ditulo ditulo tse di etseditswe o dula bana ha ba ruta Ntate Moruti re ke qhomelo wena o ke a bona o phamiseletse o batla o tlatsa mo.
Thank you very much, my brother. The vandalism issue, if we have strong SGB of South African Schools Act, give us the power to say, community, come and use the facility. And if you allow the community to come and use the facility, they will come back and take care of that facility. Because that is how you say, this is your school, come and use it and take care of it. But if we come up with a strong barrier and say, we are not allowing you, we are inviting them to come and vandalize. So Section 21, simply, it's very clear that we have the responsibility to take care of the facility. But it's our duty again to mobilize and do that in that Mfukeng. Educate our community. They will again come back and help us to stop the vandalism.
Can I also come in there?
Yeah.
The issue of drug use. I remember when we established the School of Autism. Remember the School of Autism? And what we had to buy there was very expensive. Just here in Bloemfontein, the whole block was burned down, and we're told it's the Nyaupe kids. So the issue of drugs is also playing a very key role. When they are high on drugs, they get to our schools, and then they, it becomes their meeting area, and then that happens. And also the issue of the cables. So they were just, and there's a good principal, there's a good SGB. But then the issue of drug, was playing there. And also, I couldn't believe during COVID, when we were on lockdown, our schools were being vandalized.
Really a problem. Hey, I don't know. We need to start educating our people, maybe, But, Skabati, let me just jump into you there. When it comes to violence in schools, are there any programs in place to make sure that there's a battle fought against this kind of violences in schools? Because you find in certain schools kids go to school carrying weapons, and it's scary sometimes to look at a kid and the kind of weapons they carry. I've seen them myself, So are there any programs that are there to try to fight these violences?
Yeah, there are. We're doing our best as education, but I can promise you we can bring as many programs as we want. This thing that we are fighting in our schools is bigger than education only. It needs the community, it needs all of us to put our hands together so that we can be able to deal with it. The first program is the very one that we are sitting in, where we're making awareness. We're having this discussion because we want to invite people into our schools so that they can be able to assist education. We have gone to all districts. We have launched steering committees because we are of the view that we can be able to do this with many hands. And the steering committees comprise of everybody that has interest in the school. You have faith-based organizations, you will have your NGOs that assist with issues of drugs in schools. You have your Human Rights Commission, everybody, fire, because we also bring in the issue of risk and disaster management, which is something that is coming into our schools that we must take care of. We're training educators on school safety. In fact, the first thing is in schools, we must have safety committees that has all stakeholders around the school that would assist us to deal with the problems that we have within a school. We're having awareness campaigns we having dialogue with these learners, because the other thing, and which is a problem that I think we're doing as adults, is we don't give these children an opportunity to talk to us and engage us. And in a dialogue, that's where you'll be able to understand them and be able to know what intervention must you bring. What we do as adults actually is to bring solutions to these learners, and the solutions are with them. With this thing that we are fighting. That's why we say we must have dialogues with them so that we understand their thinking and be able to assist them. But we are also involving South African police service as our biggest partner in terms of, you talked about dangerous weapons, you have drugs that are coming into schools to help us with the searches so that they can be able to confiscate these things. Those are the programs that we are having. In fact, even within the department, we bring all the sections together so that we can be able to deal with this thing together. Otherwise, if we deal with it in silos, we will not be able to conquer this problem of safety in our schools.
Mikolan, I wanna jump back to you because I once heard someone say, "Hey, wena kushebilo rata taba tsa batho, kena taba tsa batho, ke atla ho wena." And reason because someone was just complaining on how this lady's raising her kids and stuff, you know. Do you ever have situations where teachers and neighbors are reporting a case of a minor, you know, being abused, and the family denies it? And in a case like that, what do you guys do, you know, to try to bring about a solution?
Okay, yeah, that's not an easy one. That's a complicated one. But let me first say, why are parents not reporting, or why are kids not reporting? It goes back to if they don't feel safe with the people that they report to, and they feel that there is no support structure around them. So what happens then with us, if there is any necessity to ensure that they get all the information from the learner. Now I'm just talking first on issues of abuse, because on issues of rape, I think it's clear that there has to be evidence. Ne? So then on issues of neglect and abuse is where then you are still going to be involving the parents, involving the learner, but in a safe and non-judgmental space. So the most important thing is, because at schools, when learners feel they are going to be judged, and when they feel that is not a safe space for them to divulge what they went through, it becomes a problem. So as a department now, we saw a gap of social work services. As a result, we've increased our social workers to ensure that each and every circuit, even towns, has a social worker, because those are the people that are in a safe space for these learners to divulge. Also, what we've picked up is that, remember, you can report a case, but leave it there. Don't be an investigator. That's what we always do to the teachers, because now a child can go to a teacher. Now they want to know, when was it done, who did it, how was it done. You know, that is wrong. It's not required by law. When you've reported a case, move away from it, because you are not an investigator, and also you are not in a profession where you are going to be able to handle it with the sensitivity and the confidentiality it requires. So learners, sometimes they feel that if I've reported, my teacher now is going to be my investigator. Is going to be asking me, even tampering now with the evidence that needs to come through. So those are the things that we always highlight: report and leave it there. Also, within the Department of Education, our social workers don't have the statutory rights, meaning they cannot go to court and stand. So we work closely with Department of Social Development, because they have the statutory rights to go then and then be with this child up until the whole process is carried through. So there are those dynamics.
All right.
But the issue is that it goes back to creating safe spaces for learners to come out and give the information and the confidentiality needs to be upheld at all times.
We are on limited time now, you know. So when I throw a question at you, just try to be as brief as possible, because I want to throw another one to Dadeli Chulu real quick with what you with what you just said, you know. And Dadeli Chulu, you know, how can teachers and parents be able to see if a child is being abused, you know, and maybe as a form of advice, either at home or at school?
Oh, thank you very much again. And though I was never trained to be a psychologist or a social worker in this regard, but from the experience that I've gathered and realizing that working with various stakeholders, including the Department of Social Development as well as Education, you know, there's always going to be the physical, the emotional abuses that you can pick from the child that has been abused. Number one, let's just make it as simple. A child maybe used to be like me, vibrant, or maybe like our daughter, then later you are shocked that it's no longer vibrant, or what happened. You know, so if you are a concerned teacher or a concerned parent, you should ask what is really happening. Like I was saying now about my son. If he doesn't talk to me, I go and ask him, what is wrong with you? What is happening? You know, so because we talk about football, we talk about other things. So that's that. So if maybe he withdraws from talking to you, then you should pick that something is not right, especially at school or around him. When you give him money, he never used to take money, but now all of a sudden, every time he asks money, he's asking money and all those things. Those are the signs that you can see something's not right with my child. And in terms of dropping off the, again in this one, it all depends if maybe he was an A student or maybe a 50% student. Then all of a sudden it drops to 0 for all the subjects. Then it's a question for you to look into that. And the physical one is whereby you'll see your child will start maybe beating him, starting to do everything, he's closing himself in the rooms and all those things, dissociating himself from others. Those are something that you can be able to pick as a parent or as a teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. No, let me now ask. This one goes to whoever wants to jump on it. You know, it's basically on the importance of support structures, either at school or at home. How important are those support structures? And that Evan, you can jump into it since you raised your hand.
My brother, it's very much important to have support structures at home and at school. The importance is that we having number of good hands taking care of our children. That on its own brings up the positiveness out of this. Having the SBST, that is very good. It's a structure that needs to be there, that need to provide support. The safety committee and all other structures in the school and in the community. Look, in the community, we know that we have, like I've mentioned, Emma Makelwane program. That is the structure that we say when we are at home, you know that there's a place that I can go to and talk about these issues. There's a place, a church, you can talk to you know, to the reverend, to the archbishop. These structures are very much important because these are the structures that will help us to mold the disciples that we want, to mold the children and the future leaders that you want. And through, if we have these good structures, that is where we get the good results that take us back to number one as the province. But if we don't have these good structures, the importance of having them won't be assisting us. So the structures then are debating more. We have structures that we can run to in terms of safety.
If you allow me to chip in, sorry about that, but allow me to chip in that in terms of the structures. We're saying as long as the family is number one, it's key.
Yes.
Two, the communities that we are living in.
Yes.
But now I want to challenge the communities, not the educators to say, the communities. I normally say where we used to grow by where I could not do certain things if Ndade Mufokeng is watching me. And if I go and tell my parents such things, I'm going to be beaten by my parents as well. But things have changed now. When you're supposed to reprimand the neighbor's child, you don't do that. You are scared to do that because the neighbor will come and say, what are you doing with my son or my daughter because now you decided to come to man. So that on its own, it shows there's a gap and there's a problem. Because now, in terms of saying, like I said, we have to make sure that people, they are equal. And in terms of being equal, human rights can be attained, and being attained, that it's going to be easy for us to be free. So you cannot be free because now the same person whom me as a neighbor was trying to correct or reprimand, and you came and say, no, not my child. Tomorrow the same person is the one who's going to steal for all of us. So it starts there, the structure. Then later, after we can win this battle from the communities and the family, it's going to take us where? To the schools, because now everyone will be ready and know that I'm here to support not only certain individuals, as they call SGBs. No, all of us have to be there. So that support that they need, because the constitution, like I'm saying, children's rights, section 28, section now, yeah, the children, that simply say that the rights of children must be protected, and they will tell you what are the things that they're supposed to do. Must have a shelter, must go to school, must do all those things. So if it doesn't have a shelter, why the child is being abused? We are all quiet. Then every time you can see you have to go to work, you see there's the uncle always every 10 minutes he comes out smoking, then after that naked, then he comes back. But the child doesn't go to school. What are you saying? Why can't you report that? Yeah, it's your duty to report that. Then you'll take it like remember what Colin was saying, report and make sure that you follow you now, not the school, but you as a parent say, I've reported this matter. What is happening with this matter about this young girl? I don't see him going to school, because we have to ensure as a human rights that each and every child must be at school. That's what Constitution wants.
If you still want to add
That
real
took the
quick.
words right out of my mouth.
Okay, with that being said, Fifi, let's start with you. Your closing remarks.
My closing remarks. This topic is a very big topic, not just to adults, not just to kids, but to everyone in general, South Africans in general, the whole country in general. So just to say, I really truly hope that the learners out there and the parents out there realize and understand the concept of everything that we're trying to do, the outreach programs that we're trying to create, you know, everything that we're trying in our power to enlist in today's youth, in today's country in general, because we have to push to try to make a change in everything. That's just my closing remark. That's just my words.
Tadele, maybe jump onto you whilst the fire is still burning.
No, you know, let me start first by commending to have us here again, and also commend the Department of Education for what they're doing. Otherwise, I'm here because I was part of the project. You know, I was always talking and giving guidance of the things that's supposed to be done, looking at the Constitution anyway, because we are the custodian of the Constitution. So I normally emphasize on 3 sections when you go to the Constitution. Section 9 of equality, Section 10 of human dignity, and Section 11 of right to life. Those are key for all of us. So if for us to be able to achieve that, because the absolute right that you are having is right to life. Education, it depends on countries which are laws or acts to adopt. They say this is an absolute right according to us. So we are saying education is one of those things. Now, meaning that once you are alive, you have to use that time conducive to a manner that at the end of the day will be able to attain equality that we are talking about as a country. And once we have attained that equality, it will be able to for all of us to say, then we can see the dignity of our people is going to change. Now, meaning that now we'll be saying we have achieved. We are no longer now trying to advance to move into those things. We are doing it. But as long as now, Metolan is still giving us the statistics of 100 and something students, and I didn't want to get into those things. You just say, are those students or learners from local schools, or are they from township schools? No, what to say? You know, you try to get these things. So you try to figure. I've been thinking about it, but I don't see white people featuring it. It's only black people. So there's a problem with black people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we are trying to emphasize that. We are questioning us so every time, saying, but what is really happening with our people? But in short, like I'm saying, thank you for the department for what they are trying to do.
Yeah.
But we need more support. Like she has said it, we need support from all angles so that we can be able to win this. Barachoga came
Okay.
A re betsa ka maele a Setswana.
Ke tshwanetse re tshwaragane le kgwedi ya teng, gore re kgone go bona re fitlhelela ko re batlang teng.
Yeah.
So department ga ba tshwana go ba rane ba le bone, constitution ke ya rona, because we are the government, not Department of Education. We, all of us seated here, we are the government.
The del cholo we shapile na kwena I move. Now always our now give a harder on people on their closing remarks. But that is how we your closing remarks. But while you are at it, maybe just as an advice out there, Jorge, how can teachers and learners have that mutual respect within each other, just to avoid issues of harassment and violence and that disrespect in schools as well. Maybe just to add it briefly in your closing remarks.
Yes, first I would like to indicate that we have the National Schools Safety Framework that guides us on that point that you raised of prevention of corporal punishment. So it is clear how we should unions. I think Ms. Kabati is one of the union members together with some of us who led the unions. We also have unions that must also ensure that they assist us in as far as training educators is concerned as well, and speaking to our educators. And I think that will help a lot, because we are training the newly appointed educators, the newly appointed school principals or members of the school management teams. They get, and therefore I think
principal ho matleng a rona hore dikolo tsena tse re nang le tsona ka mona re di hlokomele hore di tsebe ho hodisa setjhaba sena se re nang le sona. Bana ba dikolong ha se ba matitjhere fela, ke ba rona. Ha re thusaneng le matitjhere hore boitshwaro ba bana ba rona bo be hantle, re ba hlokomele ba se fela ka pela mahlo a rona. Ba tla ka tsatsi le leng ba tshwele mabitla a rona, hobane tla be re dutse re sa ba thusa hore re hlaole sena se teng ka hare ho dikolo tsa rona, se sa re thuseng hore bana ba rona ba tswele pele. Re etsa boipiletso, ha re tshwaraneng hore re lokise dikolo tsa rona, e tle re ha re celebrate number 1 e be le hore kaofela re tshwarane.
Mekwalane.
I can just say all of the above. Well said. So who educates morals? Is parents, is communities, is institutions within communities. So we can be educated in mind, but our morals, our character, because all these are social ills that are the perpetrators are people that are not educated in morals. Thank you.
Tatevani?
My brother, lentswe la ka le la o qetela fela ko hore molaetswana ke batla o lebisa ho batswadi haholo jwalo ka component e ke e eteletseng pele. Ke re batswadi, ngwana ke wa setjhaba, mme polokeho ya ngwana e matsong a rona kaofela, mme polokeho ya dikolo tsa rona e matsong a rona kaofela. Ha re emeng jwalo ka batswadi, jwalo ka re tlamehile re qale lapeng, ha re qaleng lapeng re sireletse lapeng, re tsamaye re ye ka ntle sekolong re lo sireletsa dikolo tsa rona. Ke mo boikarabelo ba rona go leng teng. Re tla ba motlotlo re jwalo ka setjhaba re ahile bana ba rona bana re bolokile dikolo tsa rona di hlwekile ebile e le sebaka se bokeleng hore bana ba rona le metso ya rona ba ka sebeletsa teng. Ke a leboha.
With those words from Tatevani, a big thank you to all the panelists that are sitting with us here with the education, the information that they've given to us, and everyone at home. I hope that today someone is educated about all of this that we were talking about, and we as a community, we're going to go out there and make sure that our schools are safe and our kids are well protected. With those words, to whom much is given, much is expected, and to whom much is expected, much is required. Every champion that is a champion today was once a contender who refused to give up. I'm Pina Nilituane, aka Mpixo P, the greatest. I thank you.